Um, hey, we can. Oh.
Hello.
Nice. Welcome.
Welcome back to another episode of Have a Strong Weekend.
I like
I'm
how the title card is like you just had the H from like last week. You just tilted it to do I.
last week was Hogan Family. This week is I, and first I'm I'm one of your co-hosts, Andrew,
And I'm one of your co-hosts, Josh.
and we're from Have a Strong Weekend, haveastrongweekend.com. If you've been following us, we've been taking a bumpy journey through the history of television, through some of the more lost and forgotten TV shows, one alphabetical letter at a time. And we're now up to the letter I for Incredible Hulk. I've almost got the intro down. I've almost got it down. We're close.
Yeah, you're real close. It's maybe by the time we get to Z, you'll have it completely down.
That'll probably be right.
Yeah, we're on a no string budget, not shoestring.
We don't even have strings for our shoes.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Incredible Hulk, which is actually this is probably going to be one of our most popular series that we've covered so far, because we've done some pretty oddball things, pretty like lots of forgotten stuff. This is definitely one that still permeates out there. Like everybody knows Lou Ferrigno is the Hulk, and so it's got much more of a legendary status, I think. But
I agree.
But
I think
nonetheless,
I think it still qualifies as a little lost and a little bit forgotten.
I think so. Well, the more we go on, for sure. I mean, there's no young kids,
Right.
Gen Z. They don't even know what this is. They only know that Marvel.
Well, here's the thing. Like, that's absolutely right, and I think it's that way with this. This just popped into my head last night. Remember? I don't know if you remember, but remember how when you were a kid, when a big movie was coming out, you were like, I just want to be able to live to see this movie. Like, I just want to be able to stay alive for 6 months until this movie comes out. Like, usually it was either a Batman movie or a Star Wars movie or something like that. But I don't feel that way anymore. And I feel like it's because these franchises now, whether it's Marvel or Star Wars or DC or whatever the case may be, they're not really ours anymore. They're now for younger generations. And the Hulk now, the Marvel Hulk, I still enjoy the Marvel Hulk movies that come out and the Avengers and that kind of thing, but it's not really my Incredible Hulk. This, though, is my Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, we grew up. Yeah, I know, I do like that, and that's totally true. The stuff that we grew up with was all live effects, right? Which the show is like the epitome. They have no ability to this Incredible Hulk, when he attacks another human, and like he can only like throw them, and then they're like, whoa, but they don't really go very far. We're not dealing with CGI here, but I love it, and I'll always. I don't know about you. I mean, I do get it's like CGI. Sometimes it looks really cool. I mean, they've really done an amazing job, but I would rather have the live cheesy effects. I'm just still that way. I'm in that zone where it's like, do it live. Show me what you can do live. That's just me. I mean, I know it's corny, but it is what it is.
So you prefer the theater and the stage? Is that what you're saying? You're saying you want...
It's basically like that. It's like, just go. Why don't you go watch a play then?
You prefer vaudeville? Is that what you're saying? I think there has to be I think there has to be a balance somewhere. I think I don't mind special effects when they're done well. I mean, I like practical effects, and
No,
I like the mixture of CGI when it's done correctly.
yeah.
But
No, I love
correctly
all
is a very
effects.
correctly is a very objective or
Yeah.
subjective term,
So
because what I think is correct may not be what others think is correct.
yeah, I guess an example if you're going to compare Hulk to Hulk, right? Okay, so yeah, cheesy live effects in the '70s, they have no ability to, they can do the old car stunts, or the Hulk is just like, and it's a real guy, And then, but if you go to like the movies, the Marvel movies, the animation for the Hulk himself, I don't like it. You know how he like moves real like fluid, like it's even today they have gotten better, but
He almost moves too fluid for a
yeah,
human. Humans are kind of jerky when they run. They don't run so
yeah.
fluid.
So I guess that's probably an example for you, and what you're saying is like maybe not correctly done because it takes you out of the movie. You want it to feel as real and visceral as possible. Well, when it's animated, if it's a movie that's trying to pass as not animated, right? If it's just animated movie, whatever, we're all like it's animated. But if you're trying to do
Hmm.
all live people and you're trying to make it look as real as possible, then it takes you out of it. You're like, it's just drawings, It's like, it's just not the same excitement for me. I don't know, but I'm also
Yeah.
old, so kids probably are like, what? What are you talking about?
Well, kids just don't know any better because, and I rarely say that, but I think kids just don't know any better because
I
when
say
the
it all the time.
original, we know better. When the original Jurassic
Get
Park
off
came
my
out,
lawn.
get off my lawn. When the original Jurassic Park came out in 1993, I guess it was, the I think that the special effects of the mixture of CGI and practical, and the new Jurassic Park still use some practical effects because you can tell when it's a model and when it's animated,
Mhm.
but it looks so much more fake now than it did
Yeah, I
35
agree.
years ago, and or 30 years
I've
ago.
watched Jurassic Park in the last year, and I was thinking
And
the
you're like,
exact same thing.
how does this look worse than it did 30 years ago? And the reason why, I think, the reason why is not that it's not that the budgets have gotten smaller. It's not that they're using a Windows point three 3.0 versus whatever the new animated computer software is. It's just that directors now don't care much about the lighting and the remember the scene when the T-Rex attacks the two kids in the car and training, and Jeff Goldblum's out there with the
It's phenomenal.
yeah, and it
It's
looks
amazing.
real. It looks real, but the reason why it looks real is because you have a bunch of it's at night, you have a bunch of rain, you have a bunch of much more thought out shots, and you have real acting, you have a real storyboard, and it just feels more real. But they were using the same special effects as that they have now, but it just feels real. But now
Mhm.
they know that they can just have a dinosaur running around on the screen in circles, and they can do it, and so they just do it, and without really having a whole lot of thought towards the story or
Yeah,
making sure that this is going to look better, and like, let's actually composite these shots a little differently. And so it looks more fake, and or at least looks the same. And it's I don't know,
yeah.
that's
Like the
just where we
shot,
are
that
now.
shot, that scene that you're talking about in Jurassic Park. It's the first scene where the T Rex is attacking the kids, but it's like that first shot of the T Rex almost fully, where he lets out that roar. And
Hmm.
you've got like the moonlight and the lighting right there, and it's kind of wet from the rain. It's like, even when I watched it recently, I was like, "Wow!" Like, I was like, because it looks so real. You're like, you definitely feel what that fear would feel like. You're real scared.
Yeah,
you know.
there's
But any other movie
my
I've
brain,
watched is just no.
my brain just sort of automatically doesn't get taken out of it. It just like it does now. It's real weird.
Yeah,
It's just I mean, I guess for lack of a better term, it holds up. It just holds up better than I think
Yeah,
special effects movies do
yeah.
now. But the special effects in this TV show, The Incredible Hulk,
What special
uh,
effects? Nothing special about it.
no, they don't quite hold up. But it's funny how they tried their best to make them hold up. Like
Yeah.
when like pretty much every time Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk is running around, it's always in slow motion. Did you notice that?
Oh yeah, always in slow motion, and when he throws someone, because
It's
it's
always in
like
slow motion.
if you watch I'm almost done with the first season, reviewing everything, and every episode when he shows up and he grabs the bad guy, he throws them, and he throws them in slow motion every
And
single
it's
episode.
always shot from below,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's always him throwing them at the camera, kind of, and then it cuts, and then the guy lands onto a pile of cardboard boxes usually.
yeah.
But that's what they had back then, and like we can spend 2 hours analyzing the special effects, but like the bottom line is in 1978 when this came out, this was it. This was all we had. We didn't have a Spider-Man. I mean, like now, like it's 24 hours a day Marvel comic book superheroes if you want that. I mean, it's day and night.
Hmm.
But
Right.
back then, we had to wait once a week to see a 1 hour show, and there wasn't really any other. There wasn't Iron Man. There wasn't Spider-Man. Really, I mean, there was a couple Spider-Man TV movies, but there wasn't really a whole lot else that we had going for us other than the old Batman TV show from the 60s. I mean, it was that and this and then anything
Yeah.
else. And then I guess Superman, of course, Richard Donner's Superman in 1978.
Mhm.
And if you were into superheroes, that was your triumvirate, I guess. Those were your three things that
Right.
when you talk to your friends, Batman, the TV show, was corny but still kind of cool. Incredible
Hmm.
Hulk, great. And Superman, great. I mean, that was it. Everything else was pretty. It wasn't really, I guess,
Yeah.
until Tim Burton 10 years later that superheroes really sort of became more important. But anyway, we
Yeah.
digress. Do you want to jump
Yeah.
into
For the
this
episode.
TV show?
Yeah. For this
Well, hang on.
episode. Actually, I should
Well,
say
first of
one
all,
more
let's
thing.
first of all, okay, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say one thing that I think does elevate this that doesn't get as much mention is I do think Bill Bixby is a really good actor. He does bring some
Yeah,
emotion to this. Like if you watch the first season, you're like he's a real actor. Like he's trying to keep this in the acting realm and not just have it like the only highs are the Hulk itself, which it is. The biggest high is when the Hulk shows up or when his
yeah,
eyes are green. But he's a pretty good actor, and I
yeah,
was thinking about it more and more, like where it was like if he needs to have some emotion, that's sort of like that isolation of him being lonely, because you're supposed to convey that somehow. I
hmm
think he does a pretty darn good job. So I
Well,
had to
he had
say
a
that
pretty good,
because
yeah,
that's also something we forget in the sort of special effects type things. Sometimes that's all people talk about, but if you can bring the emotion there, you're kind of elevating it, I think.
well, of course, for all the old people watching or listening, uh, he was an actor that had been on two pretty moderately successful shows, TV shows before
Mm-hmm.
this, The Courtship of Eddie's
Yeah.
Father, and then My Favorite Martian. So he had some pretty, I mean, considering this was a hokey comic book superhero TV show, I mean, he had
Mm-hmm.
some pretty solid credentials. But anyway, so let's get into the premise of the show first before we dive into this episode. The premise is very
Mm-hmm.
simple. It's a fugitive scientist who has the curse of becoming a powerful green monster under extreme emotional stress. And that's it. That's your premise. That's your premise.
Yep.
And it starred Bill Bixby, as you mentioned. Lou Ferrigno, of course, played the Hulk, and then the other actor that I guess is kind of part of the credits.
Yeah.
Cough off camera. Cough off mic. What are you doing? Trying to scare
Yeah, I know. I
our.
need to put. Like,
Act like a
what are you?
pro.
Who are you kidding? We don't have any listeners.
And Jack Colvin was the third build actor. He was the one that played
the
the investigative TV reporter
the
working for a
reporter.
tabloid. Yeah, that was always trying to hunt down.
He's not a very good reporter.
No,
He's like he just shows up as like a mild threat, like they're like
yeah,
he's like, and he's not in every episode, but he's like sort of like milling around, like the episode we're going to show.
yeah.
I don't think he's in that episode.
He wasn't in the episode that we're watching. And what I was going to say is, when I rewatched this show, I forgot how much this was like The Fugitive. It's basically the same plot. It's one guy running on the lam. I mean, basically every episode, David Banner, Bruce Banner is
Yeah.
running from the law, running from this reporter, and trying to keep his identity secret. Which reminds me of, I used to watch the old Fugitive TV show. After the movie came out, they reran
Uh-huh.
the TV show from the '60s in reruns, and so I got into it. And it's basically the same thing. Each week he helps somebody, and then he's off to the next town. So anyway, I'll let you dive into the actual episode because it's season 1, episode 8, 7, 8.
That's correct. Yep, episode 8. Yeah, and so this episode, the Hulk is the Hulk. David Banner is going to get on a plane and fly to another doctor in another part of the country, because this doctor sometimes we'll find research being done on gamma rays. And this doctor apparently had in a very general sense, had some kind of advanced research he was doing about gamma rays. And so he was like, I need to get on a plane. Like right away. He's just going to go see the doctor. But
and of
so
course, the conflict is that the doctor is about to head to Europe for 3 months, so he's got to
yes.
get there that day.
Yeah, thank you for letting me. Yeah, that's absolutely. He's got to get there right away because the doctor. Well, the nurse, he calls and the nurse answers, or receptionist, and she's like, "Oh, he's about to go out on a conference for this, so he's got to quickly get a plane." So
it's a race against time.
It's a race against time. Although he's had lots of time to research this gamma ray thing. So
isn't he a doctor?
Can't he research it? I mean, I don't know. Anyway, him being a doctor, by the way, adds a lot of credibility.
Well, he sure likes to throw it around a lot. He
throws it around.
He's kind of a
throws it around
know-it-all
in this episode, in fact, because he's so he gets on a ticket, he gets on the plane. And the sort of subplot conflict that happens is the pilot and a flight attendant are conspiring to steal some. I can't remember what they have on board. There's something as valuable that's on board.
King Tut. It's King Tut.
King Tut. Yeah. So they're going to steal King Tut on board of this plane, this commercial plane. They're going
to steal Steve Martin.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And so King Tut, they're gonna, so they conspire to do this, and so David gets on this plane. He's unwittingly a victim, like everybody else on this plane. So the flight attendant, who's conspiring with the pilot, feeds people coffee that knocks them, like they put something in the coffee, and they knock out some of the passengers. Well, lo and behold, accidentally. So what happens is, also the co-pilots they knock out. So the one evil pilot can fly the plane. Well, here comes David Banner. He goes to the flight attendant and he says, "What'd you put in people's coffee? I need to know." And she's like, "Why don't you sit down?" And he's like, and she's like, "Are you a doctor?" And then the pilot comes up. And he's like, "Are you a doctor?" And he's like, "Yes, I am." And so the pilot gets spooked. He takes David Banner down to the basement of the plane, tries to lock him up, and you can totally imagine what happens next.
Well,
he gets mad.
Time out real quick. They actually discuss what pills they gave the passenger accidentally and the pilots. It was Carbitrol.
Carbatrol.
which is used for people who have seizures and epilepsy and that kind of thing. And she gives them a whole bunch. She takes a handful.
Yeah,
She takes like an
yeah.
entire handful.
Which is when he finds out, when David Banner finds out, he's like, "You gave them way too much. The pilots are not going to wake up."
Yeah,
And the reason that's important is because the evil pilot who sort of took David Banner down to the basement under false pretenses locks
very
him
false.
up.
Very false. Yep.
Very false. He locks him up, and then of course David Banner gets mad, breaks out of the prison, and knocks that evil pilot unconscious. So now that pilot's unconscious, and so are the other pilots. There is no pilots flying this plane right now.
None.
None.
By the way, okay, I got to stop you here. Did you notice? Did you have airplane movie flashbacks this entire episode?
100%. I was going to tell you that this episode is literally the same exact plot, just it's not comedy, but it's the same exact plot. The unconscious, and it's there. I guess it's purposeful. Like they made people pass out, and I guess an airplane, it was just they had
Accidental,
bad
yeah.
food. But
Isn't it
still,
amazing?
same thing.
Isn't it amazing how much they nailed airplane? Because I mean, like to just or not necessarily like how much they nailed 70s movies that incorporated an airline or airplane suspenseful plot, because like all the details are so perfect, like even to the point where the passengers are always overly friendly with each other and they start making conversations with each other out of the clear blue, which definitely never happens now. I guess maybe it could have happened back then when you didn't have a phone or you didn't have earbuds or any other way to tune people out. But like,
Yeah.
it's hilarious how much the passengers on the plane just start having random conversations with each other as if they know each other, but they're strangers. And it's always like, oh, where are y'all going? Oh, we're going to Chicago. It's our 50th wedding anniversary. So-and-so doesn't like flying, but he's going to, it's like all that kind of stuff is just, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Airplane. If you haven't seen Airplane, I guess that's my, my pitch to go see Airplane. Cause it nails the
airplane
disaster
disaster movie.
Man, it nails them. And I guess TV disaster, it nails them perfectly. So anyway, continue.
Okay, I just have to say too, the kid, the teenager or whatever on the plane, he becomes important later. But I just have to say he was the kid on the courtship of Eddie's father. Little tidbit trivia there.
Brandon Cruz.
So,
yeah, he was he was also the pitcher. He was also Roy Turner's son, Joey Turner, in the Bad News Bears, the movie.
That's right. Yeah,
1976. So
So okay,
one of my favorites.
So that brings us back to no pilot for this plane. And guess what happens? David Banner is going to be the one, or the Hulk. They're going to have to try to land this plane. That's the remainder of the episode.
And he's reverted back to David Banner from the time that he knocked that guy out in the
he went back to being David Banner
in the cargo part of the plane. Then he went back to David Banner, and nobody knew. I mean, it's hilarious how nobody really can put two and two together that the guy causing all this havoc is the guy with the ripped shirts and the ripped jeans.
Yeah. Now you can kind of probably with special effects make it more disguising, but at the time, Superman, this guy, like you would know who was the superhero. It's like it's not hard, because they couldn't really hide it well. But so David Banner, with the help of ground control, is now needing to fly this plane.
So that's all stock footage from Airport 1975. So all the shots of the plane in that episode of this episode 747 are all from Airport 1975.
That's awesome. That is, you were right. That is a good piece of trivia you trudged up.
That's what I'm here for.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, that just goes to show, they definitely were concerned about budgets at the time, and but we didn't care. We liked it.
Yeah,
we loved it.
Well, it sounds like probably what happened was they knew they had all that footage, and they're like, well, let's just build a show around this footage. I mean, I think that kind of
Basically,
stuff happened all the time
isn't
back
that a
then.
very Ed Wood type thing?
Yeah, it is. It is. Ed
Yeah,
Wood,
just
an
build it.
innovator.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, yeah.
Do you
Well,
know how many
so he lands
episodes
the
of
plane.
this? Well, do you know how many episodes of this show ran? Just sidebar.
Like you mean episode
Total
seasons?
episodes, seasons, and episodes.
That is a great
It was
question.
well, I had the answer. I was asking to see if you
Okay,
knew.
okay, yeah. So I don't know. I was assuming it was probably 4 seasons. I don't think it was super long, was it?
It was about 4.5, 5 seasons, 80
Okay,
episodes.
80
80
episodes.
episodes. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it
which
ran
is
from
really
November
not
of
super
77.
long these days, man. Seasons can go on. One season can be like 20 to 30 episodes.
Yeah, it seems like Netflix seems to have settled on a number around 12. Seems like most seasons
There's some.
nowadays,
It
like
depends
on
on the show. Sometimes it can go really long, but yes, probably
yeah.
12 is a good round number. But yeah, yeah, um, yeah. This was a. They tried to do some. Remember the TV movies with Bill Bixby was in it, and Lou Ferrigno would come back. There was a the series ended, and there was like 2 or 3 like TV Hulk movies, and I think the hype over the Hulk had waned by this time.
Yeah, I didn't
This
like the
Hulk at
movies.
least.
I remember seeing it was like called The Return
Yeah.
of the Hulk or something, and then there was even like the Trial of the Incredible Hulk. Those were
And
pretty
then
bad, if I
remember they
recall.
mixed Daredevil. Remember they put Daredevil in in one of them.
Vaguely,
Um,
vaguely.
yeah, I think that was the very last one they tried to do, and that was Daredevil showed up in that one. So, but
They were
it
trying to
had
create a. They were probably trying to create a Daredevil spinoff that
a
didn't
spin-off,
happen.
and it did not spin, not at the time anyway. Obviously later they did do more Daredevil
Doesn't he end up
stuff
finally
movie.
dying? Doesn't he? Doesn't I think he ends up finally dying in like the last made-for-TV movie. I'm pretty
I
sure.
think you're right. I think he died in that, at least that series, he died.
Yeah,
So,
right.
but yeah, so I mean, one of my favorite shows growing up, I can specifically remember watching it on Friday night. I mean, it was such a great show.
You were young to be watching this though. You were probably you were less than you were not even 4 years. You weren't even 4 years old.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
haven't.
we would have to. So when we used to go to like services at the synagogue,
Uh huh.
and we would Jared and I would be watching The Incredible Hulk, and we would be real disappointed because we had to go to services Friday night. We were like, oh no, like really, because we weren't going to see it again. Once we turned the TV off, we couldn't see it again. So
Well, yeah, 1982 is pretty rare to have a VCR.
yeah, we didn't have it at the time. So that's my memory of The Incredible Hulk.
That's funny. That's
Yep.
funny.
All right. Well, I don't know if there's anything else that you can think of. Pretty
Yeah.
good roundup of The Incredible Hulk.
So, how many Columbia airplanes out of 10 would you give? How many 747s would you give The Incredible Hulk, the TV show?
I give the. You mean the whole TV show or just this episode? I guess it's all the same, really.
Well, this episode.
I'd give it a 7. I'm gonna give it a good old 747s. Yeah.
I'm going to give it 7 full 747s and then a half of a 747. So just like the cargo floor and the
Yeah, that
top
makes
story and a
Yeah.
couple of the windows. So 7.5 and the
Nice.
cockpit. In the cockpit.
In the cockpit. Okay,
So
pretty good.
7.5 747s.
Very fair. I'd say that's very fair. All right. Well, yeah, that's it. That's great. I guess thank you guys for joining us for Have a Strong Weekend. Tune in next week. We'll be covering the letter J.
J. Don't forget
Should I take
to
us out?
Sure, you can take us out, but I was going to say don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Have a Strong Weekend. If you go to our website, haveastrongweekend.com, you'll have a link to all of our episodes. So go check those out. And of course, we have our Facebook community page, which is Josh and Andrew's Cocktails and Dreams. So go check out that and have a strong weekend.
Till next time.